Now, if you are a more experienced coder, you will look at this line and say, there's a bug in it. Can you tell what the bug is? So pause this video right now, if you can think of what the bug is. What is up, my disciples? Coding Jesus here. I start every video the same way, and that is with an introduction about myself. My name is Coding Jesus. I am a quantitative developer, meaning I write server and client-side applications for traders at the firm that I work at, and I also work on automated trading algorithms. Now, in today's video, we're going to be focusing on part 3 of my now ongoing series on the generation and creation of an algorithmic trading platform. Okay, in our previous episode, we left off at logging. That's what we're going to pick up today. Today's episode, we're going to be going over order types and order type responses. So which orders will be supported when we send orders to an exchange and which orders will not be supported when we send orders to an exchange. Now guys, even if you aren't a coder, it might still be worthwhile listening to this video, having it play in the background so you can really understand how the insides of an exchange works, the insides of an algorithmic trading platform. I'm sure you'll still get a lot of value out of that. Now guys, this is the second time I'm recording this, what is supposed to be around 40-minute video. The first time while editing, I noticed that the volume or the microphone was a little off. So if you appreciate the fact that I'm filming this for a second time, make sure to smash the thumbs up button. If you hate this video, make sure to smash the thumbs down button. It all counts for the same thing. Make sure to subscribe, guys. And if you're interested in this community, I have a Patreon link that you can go ahead and support me. I also have a Discord link if you want to join the Church of Coding Jesus. You can do so for absolutely free in the description box below. Alright guys, now how does this video, what's the structure of this video? Well, we're going to start off talking about theory, and then we're going to actually go into the coding segment. Now if you're new, I implore you to start at the very first episode, but if you don't want to start at the very first episode, that's still okay. You can watch this episode and hopefully you learn something from it. Okay, usually when we get into the coding segment, guys, I have my GitHub on the right-hand side and my actual IDE on the left-hand side. I already wrote all this code beforehand, and in this video, I'm simply explaining to you guys how to go about writing the same code that I've already written. So sometimes you'll see me glancing at the screen on my right, because that's where I have all the code available on my GitHub you guys can go and check out. Alrighty guys, today's video is about order types, how we're going to be coding up different order types, what we're going to support, the key pieces of information we need in every order type. And like I said, I start every video with theory, so we're going to start thinking about what order types we want to support. And guys, it's really not that complicated. There's really only 3 different order types, or really only 2 order types if you think about it, that algorithmic trading platforms or exchanges will support. Can you guess what those 2 order types are? Can you guess? Think about it for a bit. Pause the video. All right, now I'm going to tell you what those order types are. If you haven't paused the video and you still want to think about it, make sure to pause the video. Those order types are NewOrder, ModifyOrder, and CancelOrder. But there's really only 2 order types semantically, and that is NewOrder and CancelOrder. Why do I say that? Well, because a ModifyOrder is simply a cancel replace or a cancel new order. Now guys, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but when we're talking about algorithmic trading platform theory, understanding how exchanges treat a ModifyOrder is very, very important. Some exchanges, for example, and it's relevant because we're talking about order types here, they will consider changing the quantity of an order as simply changing the quantity of that order in place, meaning they don't really consider it a new order because every new order would result in you moving to the back of the queue. What I mean by that, guys, is oftentimes if you submit a ModifyOrder, you just want to change your quantity up or down, they won't put you back at the end of the line. They will keep you where you are in line and simply edit your quantity. In our exchange, we want to punish people for modifying their orders. We want them to think about their order in advance and make sure they don't modify it throughout the course of their trading. So we are going to cancel their order and move that order with a new quantity to the back of the queue. Now, of course, if somebody decides to modify their order by changing the price level, that's always going to be a cancel and move to the back of the queue at that new price level. But if they're modifying their quantity, sometimes it's modified in place. Other times it's actually a cancel and move to the back of the queue. We're going to remain consistent by punishing people for excessively modifying their quantities. We don't want that to happen, and so we will cancel their orders and move it to the back of the queue. Now, once again, I'm still talking about theory here. Before we get into the actual code, it's important to understand the theory. Every order will have a set amount of information, a set consistent amount of information that appears in every order type. Now, In the CME, for example, in iLink 3, that's called Party Details ID. All right, a Party Details ID specifies your firm's party details, which also contains a lot of meta information about your firm. Now, the CME has a very complex party details process, and we're not going to be speaking about that. We're going to be speaking about something called an order core, which is simply a collection of core order information that's important for every order to have. In our example, you're going to see that that's going to be order ID, username, and security ID. Now, later on in this series, that may expand if we think that we need more user core order information in every order that they submit. But for now, that's going to be our order core. Alrighty, guys. Now, let's actually get started by looking at the actual code. Let's start coding this up. And guys, remember, if you have any questions, make sure to leave your questions in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer them. If you're a channel member, I can guarantee you that they will be answered. But if you're just in for the ride, part of the church, I can't guarantee that they will be answered, but I will do my best because I am busy. Alrighty, I'm sharing my screen right now. As you can see, I'm at the bottom right. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. And I'm going to enlarge the font here so that you can see this clearly. Alrighty. Where are we going to start? Well, when we conceptually think of a algorithmic trading platform, we think of people trading instruments, right? They're submitting orders for instruments. So let's go ahead and add an instrument class to represent that security, whether that's Apple, Microsoft, whatever. So let's go ahead and create a new project. So same solution, but new project. Add new project. We are going to add a C# library. We are going to call it InstrumentCS. Next, it's going to be a library, so we're going to do net standard 2.1, and we're going to click create. Alrighty, guys, we are going to do the same thing we do every time we create a new project. We are simply going to copy over some key information that every project needs. Well, it doesn't theoretically need it, but we'd like it to have it. The language version, the root namespace, and the assembly namespace, just to make life easier for us. So let's go ahead and paste that down there. And we are going to call this Trading Engine Server, and Instrument. Now, guys, if you're wondering what the source of truth is in this series, it is my GitHub. So you can go ahead and check out the GitHub in case you ever see something different between one version of one of my videos and another version of one of my videos. For example, I believe that in the logging CS video, I left this as Trading Engine, but in the actual GitHub, the namespace is Trading Engine Server, right? So I'm just going to make that small change right here for now. Okay, instrument, perfect. Now let's actually get to this class. This is going to be our instrument class, so we are going to rename this file security. I'm calling it security because I don't want the namespace of trading engine server.instrument to conflict with the class name instrument. If you're familiar with C#, you'll understand what I mean by that, but if you're not, that's still okay. It doesn't really matter whether or not you understand that. Instrument. Okay, perfect. That's all we're going to need for its security. I'm not going to go ahead and define what's in the security now. I'm going to leave that for later. Now let's create another project and call it orderbook CS, which will contain a lot of this critical information that we need in our order book. Actually, let's call it orders CS. Once again, it's a library, .NET Standard 2.1. Okay, let's do the exact same thing we do every single time. So let's copy this. And let's paste that here. And we're going to say orders. All right, what's going to be in this library? There's going to be every order that we submit and the responses that we'd get from those orders. All right, so let's go ahead and create our first order. Guys, as I mentioned, every order should have metadata on it. And that metadata we're going to call OrderCore. Let's first generate the interface for OrderCore. We're going to call it IOrderCore. And for now, IOrderCore only needs a couple of things. Okay? IOrderCore is only going to need to have an order ID, and it's going to be only getters because we don't want people to be able to set the fields of IOrderCore, right? This class should be immutable, meaning a user's metadata shouldn't change throughout the course of actual trading. Their username should be the same for every single trade. We'll also have their username. And we will also have their security ID. Perfect. Now, the namespace here, let's just make sure we change it. Always start with training engine server dot orders. Okie doke. Now let's actually generate a class called OrderCore that will inherit from IOrderCore, and you'll see why we created this interface IOrderCore in just a second. So OrderCore, public class OrderCore. Of course, it implements the IOrderCore interface. Actually, let's not do that for now. Okay, let's give it a constructor. So it's going to take in a long order ID. It is going to take in a string username, and it's going to take an int security ID. Public long order ID get private set. And I can actually do this with a simple macro called propg. Double tap on tab, security ID. Propg, double tab, string username. Okay, perfect. This is our immutable OrderCore class, and I call it immutable because you can only get these fields. You can't actually set them. The setting is done privately, and it's done in the constructor. I could have as easily changed this private set to just get. It's the exact same thing as private set. So yeah, I just prefer to show the person reviewing this code that the set is private. Alrighty, that's our OrderCore. Now let's actually get into our NewOrder, our order class. This class will contain all the information required from a user when they first submit an order to us. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, like I said, guys, every single order type needs to implement IOrderCore, okay? Every single order type. Because every single order type needs that meta information, and you'll see how it's used very elegantly a little later on. So IOrderCore. And now let's go ahead and give our order constructor. Now, what do you guys think that the order class needs to take in? The first thing it needs is an IOrderCore, an OrderCore object, which is our metadata. So I'll go ahead and implement that first. But I want you guys to now think while I'm implementing this, what other information does a NewOrder need? I'll give you one more example. It needs a side, whether it's a buy or a sell side, okay? Now start thinking, what other information do we need? When somebody submits an order, what information do they need? Okay, I'm going to type out is buy side. So true is buy side, false is sell side. Okay, they also need a price. Let's put is buy side at the end. That's how I coded it up on GitHub. Let's just remain as consistent as possible. And what else do they need? They need a quantity. Now let me give you a tidbit out there. If you are a day trader or you are a aspiring quant trader, or you're just interested in market microstructure, you can never have negative quantities. Okay, that's obvious. If you see a negative quantity on an order book, you're like, this is broken, okay? But you can't have negative prices. You can have negative prices. Negative prices often materialize in spread instruments. So you'll see a spread having a negative price, meaning the back month is more expensive than the front month, or the other way around. I don't recall exactly. But you can also see negative prices in commodities. We saw that in oil several months back. Okie doke. So now let's go ahead and have the read-only private getter and setter here. So long price, uint quantity, boolean is buy side. Now we also need to implement our IOrderCore, but let's first set these properties here. So properties, price equals price. Ooh, I forgot something. Is buy side equals is buy side. And now I also, and let's just set the field. Okay, this is going to be very important. Guys, every order will rest on the order book, right? Only order objects will rest on the order book. Now, when something's resting on the order book, it's possible it can get filled. It can have a trade, and it might not get fully filled. So in every single order object, we need to specify what the initial quantity is, and what the current quantity is, right? Because the current quantity may not be the same as the initial quantity. I might send in an order for size 10, and somebody fills 5 of that 10. So I will have here initial quantity, and I will also have current quantity. Alrighty, so at the beginning, of course, initial quantity equals quantity, current quantity equals quantity. Alrighty, now guys, like I said, it's possible this order can be partially filled, so now we need methods on this order class in order to change the quantity of this order class. So we're going to do something like this. We are going to say methods. Our first one will be public void increase quantity. Quantity delta. This is the quantity we're increasing. So we're only going to be editing our current quantity. So current quantity plus equals quantity delta. We will also have public void decrease quantity, unsigned int, quantity delta. And we are going to say current quantity minus equals quantity delta. Okay. Now, if you are a more experienced coder, you will look at this line and say, there's a bug in it. Can you tell what the bug is? So pause this video right now, if you can think of what the bug is, or to think about what the bug is. And now I will explain what the actual bug is. Guys, this is an unsigned integer. If I do 0 minus 1 on an unsigned integer, I will have an underflow, meaning I will wrap around to the highest value of this actual unsigned integer. So what I want to do is I want to check here. I want to say if quantity delta is greater than my current quantity, then hey, something's up. My code is wrong. I want to protect against it. I want to be notified immediately if this happens. So quantity delta is greater than current quantity. All right. I'm going to give it some debug information. Order ID equals order ID. We're going to implement order ID in a second. Where am I going to get this order ID? Well, I'm going to get it because I need to implement IOrderCore. And IOrderCore is an interface that specifies that this class needs to be able to return these things. Okay, so I'm going to use this arrow syntax for now. So that's going to be something like, we're just going to delegate it to the actual OrderCore object. OrderCore username. Okay, now if you're new to C#, this is simply means return. It's another way to put it, usually for one-liners. But I could have as equally done this, and it would be the exact same thing. This probably will make more sense to you if you're new to C#. Now, likewise, if I don't specify if I don't specify the set here, then it is by default private set, right? But for simplicity, because I'm implementing an interface I will simply use this one-line syntax, right? So it's easy to understand that, hey, when I have the get in the private set, I know that that's probably being done by this class. But when I have simply this, return arrow, I forget the actual name for this operator. When I have this return arrow, then it's returning a member of another class that we've taken in via the constructor. Alrighty, guys, that is going to be it for our order class. So as you can see, it's quite simple. Now let's go to our order canceler, or cancel order, which is going to be a lot simpler than our modify order. So we have order, now we're going to do cancel order. Modify order is probably the most complex one, but it still isn't that complex. Okay, cancel order. Once again, every order needs to implement this IOrderCore interface, and it needs to be able to take in relevant information via the constructor. Okay, what information do we need for cancel order? Guys, start thinking. If I submit an order, what information do I need to follow up with if I want to cancel that order? There's actually really only one thing you need. Pause this video now to think about it. Okay, I'm assuming you've thought about it by now. That thing is the order ID. Yes, the order ID will be unique for every single order. Every single order will have a unique order ID. So all we really need in this cancel order is an IOrderCore object because that contains our order ID. Alrighty. So we will go ahead and now simply set OrderCore. OrderCore equals OrderCore. That's all we need. But of course, we need to also implement this interface. Let's be consistent. And let's do that. You can type out fields here if you'd like. I'm gonna stop doing that. I do it when I write production code, and you know what? I'm gonna continue doing it, but just in general, it's not needed. It's just for clarity so people can really follow along. So this is gonna be OrderCore.orderID. This is gonna be OrderCore.username. And this is going to be OrderCore.securityID. Now, if you're still watching, congratulations. You are probably in the top 10% of people that are actually interested in quantitative trading and not part of the fakes. So congratulations. Now we're going to move on to, and smash the like button if you're still watching, of course. Now we're going to be moving on to our ModifyOrder. Guys, the ModifyOrder is a little more complex, but I'm confident that you guys have enough knowledge this far to be able to understand what you need or how you should be implementing a ModifyOrder. Think about it. When I want to modify an order, what do I need? Well, of course, I need to understand, or pause the video if you want to think about it by yourself. All right, hopefully you've unpaused the video by now. If I want to modify an order, I need a couple of things. The most concrete thing that I need, that is probably the lowest hanging fruit for you to understand, is I need an order ID. I'm going to be looking in an order book and seeing whether or not this order exists to begin with. Because if it doesn't exist, then there's nothing to modify, and I would be sending back a reject. I would be rejecting this modify request. All right, so the first thing we are going to need is an order ID, and where is that located? It's located in our IOrderCore object, and of course, every modify order needs to implement IOrderCore. IOrderCore, OrderCore. Okay, what else do we need? Well, when we modify an order, we're going to either be modifying the price, the quantity, or both. So we know we're going to need that, so modify price, modify quantity, and we are also, theoretically we don't need this, but we're going to add it just in case we might need this later. We are going to add the side as well. Of course, you can't modify your side in a modify order, at least we don't want to support that initially. But we are just going to add this information here in case we ever need to use it again. It's cheap to send over. So a Boolean is by side. Okie doke. Let's just make sure this is seen on one line. Okie doke. So we are going to need to have, once again, have our long price. Let's call it, for clarity, modify price. And we're calling it modify price, but the price might not actually be modified here, right? He or she might only be modifying the quantity. Modify quantity, and we're also going to need bool is by side. Okie doke. Now we're going to need to have our fields as well. And we're going to start by setting that here. And let's go ahead and set our properties. And guys, if you have any questions or there's some concerns here in terms of what does this mean, what does that mean, if there's anything here that's revolutionary or a concept that you need to understand, make sure to check the description box. It will contain that information. I'll leave links to relevant parts. So modify price equals modify price, modify quantity equals, you know, I don't really like calling it modify quantity. I just want it to be the quantity on a modify order. So quantity. The constructor will already tell you that it's a modified quantity. Price is by side. Okie dokes. Now, this is where the small minutia of complication happens, all right? Oh, let's first go ahead and implement this. So, once again, Okay, this is where some of the minutia happens. Now, before you pause this video, think about what we need to do with a modify order. At the beginning of the video, I was talking about theory, and I mentioned that a modify order is really two orders. It is a new order and a cancel order in one. So we're going to need two methods here to be able to take this modify order and generate a new order, and one that will be able to take this modify order and generate a cancel order. All right? So start thinking. How can you do that? What should you do? So pause this video now to think about these two methods and how you should write them. All right, hopefully you're back from after pausing this video. We are now going to write these two methods, okay? We are now going to write these two methods. So the first one, let's start with cancel order. We're going to need to return a cancel order. So we're going to have a method called toCancelOrder. And what's going to happen? Well, look how elegant my code is so far. That's it. We're returning a new cancel order. And we're going to be passing in this. What is this? It is a pointer to the current instance of this type, so the current object. Now, why does this work? Well, because a cancel order takes in a IOrderCore, and every order type that we have implements IOrderCore. So this concrete implementation of IOrderCore modify order will be stored in CancelOrder. And a cancel order has all the information that we need to be able to cancel an order, in particular the order ID, via the IOrderCore object. All right, now let's think about the new order. So public order to new order. This is going to be a little more complex. So if you still want to think about this, pause this video now before I write the code for this. All right, hopefully you paused the video. Maybe you've thought about it a bit. If you didn't pause the video, that's still okay. We're going to go through it together. Return new order this. Look at that. But hey, Coding Jesus, there's an error. There's no constructor of order that takes in an IOrderCore. That is correct. But we're going to implement it. And we're not going to take an IOrderCore this time because a new order needs a lot more information than simply an order ID and a username and a security ID. We are going to add a constructor for order that takes in a modify order. All right, we're going to take in a constructor that takes in a modify order. And what are we going to do with this modify order? Well, we're going to call the other constructor here with all the information that we need. So we're going to pass in the modify order, which is an IOrderCore object. We're also going to pass in modify order's price. We're going to pass in modify order's quantity. We're going to pass in modify order is buy side. And let's just move this here. There we go. That's our constructor for order that takes in a modify order. And look how elegant that is. Very, very, very easy and simple. Alrighty, guys. Now let's get to the second half. Right? So we already covered all the order types we're going to need to send. Now let's cover the return types that we are going to need, right? So the first return type that we are going to need is a order status. Yes, an order status, so a new order status. So we're going to need a new order status. Now, we're not going to flesh out these classes just yet, but we are still going to create them. So anytime somebody sends in a new order, we are going to need to return a new order status. So new order status is something that we are going to need to return. We are also going to need to return a instance of modify order status. Once again, public, and we are going to return an instance of cancel order status. Alrighty, now we will flesh these out later on after we're done implementing the order book, because that will inform us what we actually need to send back in these three different statuses. Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and generate a given status, or create a class that will generate a given status based off the order type you receive. Guys, think about it like this. I get an order sent to me. I need to send a new order status back. I get a cancel order sent to me. I need to return a cancel order status back. So we're going to have a class called, let's just call it action result conversion, meaning I get an action from somebody, a new order, and I send back something else. So maybe let's call it order status creator. I like that a little better. So public sealed class, we don't want anybody inheriting from this, and it's going to have static methods on it. So public static cancel order status. So generate cancel order status. It's going to take in, what does it need to take in? A cancel order. And it's simply going to return a new cancel order status. And we're going to flesh this out in another episode. I just want to write this frame first. We're going to also have a new order status. So generate new order status. It's going to take in an order, not a new order status. Let's just write these cancel order. Right turn. And now we're also going to have our public static modify order status. Okie dokes. So we have our orders, we have our return types. Now, in this video, I'm going to also add one more order type that's important to understand or keep in mind. Now I'm going to add it here under OrderCS, but I'm going to have it in a separate namespace. So I'm going to have, because I think it's distinct from actual order. So we're going to create a reject. What's a reject? Well, let's say somebody sends us an order, and that order doesn't conform to any of our specifications, or maybe the actual order doesn't, maybe the actual order, let's actually have it in a separate project. Maybe they send us an order, for example, that has an order ID that doesn't exist in our order book. We need to be able to communicate that we didn't accept what they just sent us. And we're going to communicate that via a reject. So they sent us an order and we reject it. So let's go ahead and create another project here. So add new project. We're going to call it RejectCS. .NET Standard, create. Okay, RejectCS. RejectCS. Now, you know what? Let's keep it in OrderCS for now. So we are going to add reject to OrderCS, and it's just going to be in another namespace. So we're going to call it rejects. All right. Public reject, and a reject will always contain certain information. So for now, what we're going to do is take in a IOrderCore object, which will be the rejected order. And we are also going to take in a rejection reason. So we need to create a rejection reason. So it's going to be an enumeration. Now, before I flesh out this enumeration, start thinking about what are different reasons an order would be rejected. So pause this video now and think of different reasons why an order would be rejected. All right, hopefully you've thought of that. Now let's go ahead and actually implement our rejections here. So let's just have this as IOrderCore for now. IOrderCore. Let's do this real quick. OrderCore. Okie doke, let's set that here. Fields. Rejected order. Oh, no, rejected order. We're going to have our G. we're going to have our rejection reason. So there we go. Now let's go ahead and actually implement these rejection reasons. Now there's a couple of reasons why we can be rejected. Just right off the bat here, to think of a few. The first one is the fact that maybe we don't know why we were rejected. So we're going to have unknown as the default here. Another one could be order not found. So somebody submitted an order with an order ID we can't find in the order book associated with that order. Another one, instrument not found. So maybe somebody submits an order with an instrument or security ID in that OrderCore object that isn't actually in our order book. I don't know how that can potentially happen. Maybe it can happen. Maybe they misformatted whatever formatters they used to send the order over and something happened. And then another one that I can think of right now is when somebody attempts to modify an order, but the side that they're trying to modify is wrong. So the order ID is right. They have a given price or quantity they want to modify or both. But when they send whether or not the order they want to modify is a bid or an ask, they get the actual side wrong. Now, maybe later down the line, we can reinterpret the side being wrong as them wanting to switch the side that they are on the order book. But for now, we will reject that. So attempting to modify wrong side. Those will be our reject reasons for now. If you have your own reject reasons you'd like to think of or add, you can go ahead and do that. Now, we are also going to be adding, like we had a, where is it, order status creator, we will have a reject creator. So reject creator, it's going to be kind of like our factory here. So it's going to have a factory method. So sealed public static rejection. So this will need to be also in rejects. Rejection, or reject, okay. Reject, let's actually just rename this rejection to be consistent with my code in GitHub. Now let's call it generate OrderCore rejection. It's going to take an IOrderCore, which we need the namespace for. Rejected order, rejection reason. Let's just call rejection reason RR. Return new rejection. Rejected order RR. Let's not be lazy. Let's not be lazy, coding Jesus. There we go. Alrighty. Now we have all the order classes and corresponding status updates and reject updates that we will need in order to actually start submitting orders into our order book. The next episode will be about the order book, the different interfaces and the actual concrete implementation of the order book. And we will also, because we use test-driven development here at the Church of Coding Jesus, be writing tests for our order book to make sure that they work. That's the end of the video, guys. If you did enjoy it, make sure to smash the thumbs up button. If you didn't like it, that's okay. Smash the thumbs down button. Like I said, it all counts towards engagement in the YouTube algorithm. Make sure to subscribe, guys. And if you'd like to support this channel, Patreon link in the description box below. Guys, this is the second time I'm recording this video. I recorded this video once and I noticed the audio didn't really work. Now, I could have been lazy and still posted it. But I'm not going to be lazy for you guys. I'm going to do it again if indeed it doesn't work the first time. I also have a Calendly link if you'd like to talk to me one-on-one. Schedule a session, book a session with me. And if you'd like to email me and say, Coding Jesus, I love you, I have a question, whatever, you can do so at thecodingjesus@codingjesus.com. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. I hope you learned a lot. Cheers.